Ladies and gents, welcome to UX, and this is the US Marines surrounded by communists. The chosen reservoir. This was on Electrician. Yeah, I missed few videos from Electrician when he posted, so I guess it's one of them. I think there's another one that I missed. I'll have to check that out. So yeah, whenever this communist or communism is involved with Electrician, you know the story is gonna be awesome. Let's waste fun.
All right, well, it's Halloween. I guess we should talk about that time that the United States Marine Corps figured out a way to turn Tootsie Rolls into a weapon. Today we're talking about one of the most underrated and underappreciated battles in United States military history, the Battle of the Chosin Reservoir. When 15,000 US Marines and 3,000 Army soldiers got ambushed and surrounded by 120,000 Chinese Communist forces in the dead of winter, with temperatures reaching as low as -50. But despite the weather, despite being ambushed and taken by surprise, and despite being outnumbered 4-1, the United States Marine Corps led this operation to not only survive, but to kill a disproportionate amount of the enemy and save 10% of the South Korean civilian population in the process. And we're going to get into it right after a word from our sponsor.
Delete me.
This is about the Korean Wars? I don't know.
Back to the video.
Yeah, but go to original page and
All right,
support
Battle of
this
the
channel.
Chosin Reservoir. In order to understand it, you have to understand the Korean War. And considering it's literally called the Forgotten War and most people know nothing about it, we're going to go ahead and do a little recap so we're all on the same page. After World War II, the Korean Peninsula is divided along the 38th parallel, pretty much the same border that we have today. Up north, you have the North Koreans that are communist, and they are backed by the Soviet Union and China. Down south, you have the capitalist South Koreans that are backed by the United States of America and the rest of the Western world. On June 25th, 1950, the North Koreans attack. They invade south with Soviet tanks and Soviet training, and they pretty much steamroll the South Koreans, capturing Seoul, the capital, in less than 72 hours, and driving all of the South Korean forces all the way down the peninsula to a tiny little alcove where they're holding out, known as the Pusan Perimeter. And then America steps in. Why does America step in? Because at this point in time, America is practicing what is known as containment doctrine, and containment is referring to communism. Basically, the American leadership has decided that communism is bad and we don't want more of it. However, we don't want to go in there and root out the entire ideology because it would be World War III and there'd be a ton of death. So America kind of looks at communism like an inoperable cancer. We're not willing to go in there and take it out at the root.
Yeah, basically it's like Soviet Union, right? It's like Soviet Union versus America. This was the point, right? And obviously communism kind of said that this versus capitalism versus communism, that became a thing. China being communist also was part of that. Yeah, so whenever there's like communism is involved, like America's going to be involved. But communism is involved because they know America's going to be involved as well. So it was a weird thing. This was an insane war, like going back and forth. Like they pushed South Korea all the way to Busan, like he said. And then like America's going to come back, push all the way into China. And this is going to happen, I think, twice. Like, okay.
However, we're going to do everything we can to stop it from spreading. The idea being, if we can stop it from spreading, we can prevent World War III, because if we allow the communists to take South Korea or any other nation, then it's going to spread from South Korea to Japan to Australia, and it's going to go all over the world. And next thing you know, we've got World War III, capitalism versus communism, and it'd be a fucking catastrophe. Whether that's right or wrong, that was the idea and the strategy at the time. Now, the obvious thing to do would be to land all the American forces inside the Pusan perimeter and then fight your way back up the peninsula, but that's not what General MacArthur and the rest of the American leadership decides to do. They decide to take a riskier strategy of launching an amphibious landing on the other side of the country in Incheon. Why is this risky? Because Incheon is not a very viable location to launch a massive amphibious landing because it's a horrible beach. There's literally a seawall there. The only time an amphibious landing would be possible would be for 1 or 2 hours during high tide. And when you're talking about moving tens of thousands of men out of hundreds of boats in a 1 to 2 hour gap at a very particular time, that's going to require both logistical perfection and a significant amount of luck. But that's exactly what happens. On September 15th, 1950, America launches Operation Chromite, lands 75,000 Marines.
Yeah, I mean, Americans did that just a few years ago for the Normandy. So they're like, yeah, we got this shit.
In Incheon. They immediately take over Incheon, catching the North Koreans off guard, and head straight into Seoul and take it over as well. From here, they pretty much cut the enemy lines in half, cutting off supplies to all of the men south of them, and all the UN forces break out of Pusan, pushing back up the peninsula. By early October, literally in 2 fucking weeks, America has retaken all of South Korea and pushed the North Koreans all the way back into their own country. At this point, General MacArthur, who's already pretty renowned for being arrogant, sees the outrageous success that he's had in this risky operation situation, he's taken over all of South Korea in like 2 weeks, everything's going great. He gets the idea in his head of like, hey, what if we break containment doctrine and we push into North Korea and just eliminate the North Koreans completely, and then we can unify Korea.
No, don't like that.
So he takes this idea to the president and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The Joint Chiefs of Staff actually kind of like the idea, but President Truman is hesitant because he doesn't want to start World War III. So he issues the order, U.S. forces are allowed to proceed into North Korea with caution. However, disclaimer, only South Korean forces can advance all the way to the border between North Korea and China. And this is a brilliant strategy on President Truman's part. Because you have to understand, China is a communist nation that's not only backing North Korea, but they're ran by
This is a classic case of a president have to think diplomatically and military wise, while generals just being gung-ho like we are military, fuck you, I'm not afraid of anything. That kind of mentality. So Truman's like, yeah, we can't really step foot inside China because that might happen, trying to push back the North Koreans. Yeah, we don't want Americans there because that's enough of an excuse for another world war. And World War II ended with nuclear bomb. So when ball is rolling down the hill, it's gonna accelerate. This was that time. But like nuclear bombs were there, like just science was getting better and better. This was a right time. Like, yeah, it's just like 5-6 years since like we did that, and like, yeah, now if it could explode even more, and like, yeah, it's Fallout level shit. So Truman was right at the level, like, yeah, let's everybody calm down, let's not fuck with World War III. This is not time for that.
Chairman Mao, and he just got done fighting a civil war in his own country, fighting against a side that the United States was backing, and he knows that America fucking hates communism. So Chairman Mao is understandably paranoid that America is going to invade. He also is battle-hardened. He has a ton of men that are also battle-hardened. So Truman, by doing this, is saying like, hey, we'll advance into North Korea, but we're only going to send the South Koreans all the way up to the Chinese border. And this is going to send the clear message to China, hey, America's not coming to invade China. We're just gonna, stop here 100 miles back, and then we're gonna let the South Koreans handle the Korean business. Korea will get unified, and you can stay over there with your communism and not food. But General MacArthur, in his infinite fucking wisdom and arrogance, decides that he's going to defy the orders of the president, aka the commander-in-chief.
Fuck does he know, Truman? I'm the one who's here. I'm the one who's gonna get shot. I'm the general. It's in the name. What does Truman know?
But not only just the commander-in-chief, the same commander-in-chief that ended World War II. Clearly, that guy doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. So he violates
That's
orders.
politics, man. Come on. Truman didn't end anything. What does Truman... people like me did it. I'm the general. I'm the soldier. I'm the commander. I'm everything. Every victory is for me. There you go.
And orders all of the American forces to advance north all the way to the Yalu River, which is the terrain feature that defines the border between China and North Korea.
That seems like a bad sign.
Now, from Chairman Mao's perspective, this is an enormous fucking issue, understandably so. I mean, imagine if the roles were reversed and China were north through Mexico, and he ordered his Chinese communist forces to go all the way up to the Rio Grande. Do you think America and Texas would sit there and twiddle their thumbs and hope that the Chinese were going to stop at the Rio Grande, knowing that China had taken a vow to basically eradicate capitalism? Absolutely fucking not. So why would you expect your enemy to not do the exact same thing that you would do in that situation? Sorry, if you're getting the vibe that I don't like General MacArthur, it's because I don't. Buh! General MacArthur's a hero. He said he would return to the Philippines in World War II, and that's exactly what he did. Buh! Oh, did he? Did he fly in like Superman, shooting laser beams out of his eyes and tank the entire island by himself? Or was it the 1 million Marines and Army guys that went in there and gave their lives to liberate the Philippines? And why did he have to take a vow to return to the Philippines anyways? Was it because after Pearl Harbor had been attacked and he received early warning that the Japanese were coming, he decided to not get all of his planes up in the air, so when the Japanese showed up, they got to bomb all the planes still on the fucking ground, getting a bunch of men killed? And then he tried to delay the battle strategy of having all of his men fall back to Bataan, and instead he tried to defend the entire island at first, getting even more men killed because losing the Philippines would make him look bad. And then when pretty much all hope...
Hold up there. Isn't it president's job to like direct something like, okay, we are going back to Philippines? Isn't that president has to say that he is the commander-in-chief? Can general make that decision? General is general when it given a certain task, like, okay, you're taking back Philippines, you're the general, do your thing. But going back to Philippines, isn't that decision of the leader of the military, which is president of the United States? So can you really give that credit to him? I don't know. I don't know how the structure works. I'm genuinely asking.
Hope was lost. He decided to hop in a PT boat in the middle of night and evacuate himself and abandon his men. Is that why he had to return? Buh! That's not fair because he was ordered by the president to evacuate the Philippines. Buh! Oh, just like he was given the order by the president to not have U.S. troops approach the Chinese border, but ordered his troops to go right there anyways. It's almost like he's willing to follow orders whenever it saves his own ass, and he's willing to defy them and put all of his men in harm's way the second he thinks it's gonna pad his own fucking glory. I'm sorry, I'm getting very sidetracked. I apologize.
Look, man, I think if you're the top general and you defy president's order, doesn't matter how good you are, you're automatically court-martialed, at least demoted. As soon as he defied the order, why didn't president's like, fuck you, you don't defy my orders, I tell you what to do, go away. Somebody else gonna take your place. I think that's how it should have been.
Apologize.
Almost lost my cool there.
MacArthur issues the order to go all the way to the Yalu River, aka the Chinese border. Marines go into North Korea, start kicking ass, start beating their way all the way up the peninsula. They're advancing so fast that the front lines are moving faster than the supply lines can keep up. They're literally outrunning the supply lines. While that's going on, Chairman Mao in China sees that America is invading North Korea, so they do an understandable thing and start amassing hundreds of thousands of troops on the Chinese border in case America decides to attack. American intelligence knows about this. They give the reports to General MacArthur. General MacArthur ignores them.
What a stupid son of a bitch.
The Marines keep advancing north, outrunning supply lines. At this point, Chairman Mao starts sending his Chinese forces into North Korea under the cover of night on foot. By November 1st, 1950, Chinese troops are confirmed in combat with the United States Marine Corps. Hits Truman's desk, hits MacArthur's desk. MacArthur says, that's not possible. Keep advancing towards the Chinese border. November 2nd, 1950, Marines advance into the Sudong Gorge on their way to the chosen reservoir when they are ambushed by a sizable Chinese element. Unfortunately for them, the Marines that they ambushed was the 1st Marine Division, being led by none other than Chesty motherfucking Puller, the greatest Marine of all time. The 1st Marine Division suffers 30 casualties, and the Chinese suffer upwards of 300. So that's good. The battle went about as well as
Imagine MacArthur's like, okay, Chinese? No, they were North Korean. I thought they were North Korean. And Truman's like, are you serious or did you just say that?
it could have for war, but also pretty big fucking red flag that there's actual Chinese elements now in North Korea engaging the Marines, which MacArthur, you'll never guess, decides to ignore.
I don't see much of nothing. A matter of fact, I can't even see you, sir.
And for the first couple of weeks in November, there's skirmishes all over the place between Chinese forces and the U.S. Marines. But MacArthur and his guys make the call, just keep pushing. So the lead element of the 1st Marines winds up in a place called Hagaru, just south of the chosen reservoir, which is a massive man-made lake. From here, the plan is we're gonna have to split and send guys up both sides to keep advancing north. The man in charge of this section of the Marines is General Oliver Smith, and he is not happy about this idea at all. Here's the thing, the terrain in this area of North Korea is described as being straight up or straight down. Either you're going up a hill or you're going down a hill. And the roads that you see on the map are literally bank, going downhill, road, cliff. There's nowhere to go. There's one way in and one way out, both directions. And calling it a road is kind of a stretch. It's literally an old ox trail that they can barely fit a truck on. And going back the other direction isn't any better. Going back towards friendly lines, there's still one trail going to the nearest town of Kodori, and that's 12 miles away. And then from Kodori, again, there's one trail, one road that goes 35 miles back to the port where all the supplies have to come in. So at Hagaru,
That shit is insane. Imagine being at that job, man. That's fucked up. Like, yeah, there is 100% it's going to be ambush and damage there. Because it would be insanely stupid of your enemy to not attack there. It's the only place. There are going to be supply lines. I'm going to wait here for the supply line.
They're like 50 miles deep with one way in and one way out, and if anything goes wrong, they're fucked, and they want to keep advancing further in, splitting their forces under the same conditions. But thankfully, General Smith realizes this is a humongous mistake and starts stockpiling supplies at Hagaru and orders his engineers to start building an airstrip so they can fly shit in and out. Seeing this, General MacArthur and his staff are like, way to go, General Smith, preparing for the worst, hoping for the best. What a brilliant plan. No, I'm just kidding. MacArthur and his staff are mad at General Smith and make fun of him for being overly cautious. And
All of that. I genuinely thought they were going to say that and take credit. Not that they're like, oh, what an idiot, don't do that. First of all, he's there doing his job. How did you become military leader if this is your response? It doesn't feel real to me, right? Like military chain of command, if you're at that high, you usually got at that position with being like, like coordinative, right? letting your people do their thing and understanding, you wouldn't climb the ladder that otherwise. How'd you got to this level and you could just see that decision like, oh, what an idiot. That's a general that doing its thing. Maybe respect it, maybe process it a bit. That's insane, man.
And slowing down the operation instead of just driving headfirst further into enemy territory with no backup plan. But General Smith, being a good leader, says, I don't really care about my own personal glory of being the first guy to reach the Yalu River. I would much rather do it the safe way and look out for my guys. So that's exactly what he does. He stocks up supplies in Haggle.
Glory of what? What is this, Roman Empire? Is it Julius Caesar? Of course he doesn't worry about glory. They're trying to do a thing that has a bigger element behind it with like politics and everything. Communism versus capitalism and thing, and the end goal matters. Not that like glory and all that shit. Like, yeah, he'll get a medal or something, but like if he does it right, he's gonna get a medal anyway. Of course, he's gonna think about safety for his men.
And builds an airstrip. Kate, and bear in mind, it's November in North Korea. It's dipping down into like -40, -50 at night, and it snows there. We're one snowstorm away from blocking this ox trail, cutting off supply lines, and everybody freezes and starves to death. So even without the threat of the Chinese military, this was a good and necessary idea. So they set up the 1st Marine Division headquarters.
-40 is insane, man. What is that in like Celsius? When you go that minus, you basically are equal to Celsius, right? I have to check that. Whoa, I kind of knew that. This is why I said it. It's literally equal. When you get to -40 in Fahrenheit, that is equal to Celsius. So that is -40 Celsius. Human body is like what, 38 degrees Celsius? You are 80 degrees below than your body heat should be. And now your body is constantly trying to fight it. Oh my God, I can't even process. Like, like even the people who live in the coldest, like decently cold environment, -40 is something, right? Very few places in the planet is probably going to be something like that. Damn, that's insane.
Quarters right there with 3,600 men and the airstrip. From here, they send the rest of the Marines and the Army guys up around the Chosin Reservoir. Up the right side, they send 2,500 US Army guys backed up by about 1,000 South Koreans. While they're advancing north, they come across a place called Hudong, and after that, the road conditions and the weather is so bad they have to leave their armored unit, their tanks, there in Hudong while the rest of the men advance forward. And they end up taking up position right here and they dig in. Going up the left side of the reservoir, they have Fox Company, 234 Marines that go up on a ridge, securing a choke point on the road right here, and then the rest of the 8,000 Marines advance into a place called Udamni, where they dig in. November 23rd rolls around, Thanksgiving. They all get to eat cold turkey while they're freezing their ass off in -20+ degree temperatures. November 20th.
That is next level, man. Cold is so fucked up. I know science, like I know decent science of everything, but there's biology, physics, whatever, like decent amount of. If you're -40, that is such a risk because your sensory systems are not working that great. You could literally eat something if it's frozen, you dug your teeth in. You might not even know where the threshold is and you actually break your teeth and then pain starts. Like there is going to be a lag there. This is why sometimes people literally get injured in too much cold and they don't realize and then, oh my God, I got injured. Because the sensory levels are just not there. It's either not there or completely there and you won't even realize, like, holy shit, I got damaged.
4th, MacArthur comes through division headquarters celebrating, telling everybody we're all going to be home by Christmas. Hooray, and then he takes off and fucks off in his plane. What MacArthur doesn't know is that Mao has already sent in 120,000 soldiers to surround everybody at the Chosin Reservoir. And the Marines don't know that either, so they're all just hanging out, freezing their asses off. It's so cold that the lubrication that they use on their guns actually turns into jelly and would jam the guns, so they strip all their guns of all the lubrication, and if they get in a firefight, they're just going to have to run the guns dry. But that's not going to happen because MacArthur was just here. He said we're going to be home by Christmas. The war is basically won. Hooray. I just got to sit around and freeze my ass off for a few more days, and it's all going to be good.
Isn't this cold enough that even the oil in your vehicle would freeze up? There are places on this planet, especially in Russia, where they literally keep the car running all day long and they don't just stop it because the oil would freeze otherwise. And even if they do, they put some kind of a blanket on top of it and a heater and like burning coal or burning wood in the, like underneath it. So overnight it stays warm. Isn't -40 degrees that cold? I think it is, right? I don't know.
Until it's not. November 27th, 10 o'clock at night, both at Udom-ni, the Army position, and Fox Company, all the Marines are hanging out. They're in their sleeping bags. They're sleeping. They're waiting for the war to get over. And then they hear bugle calls off in the distance. And within minutes, all hell breaks loose as
At
wave
night?
after wave of Chinese soldiers start rushing their position. The Marines that were up
40-degree minus, and now you're fighting at night. Not even sun is out. Oh.
monitoring the perimeter are scrambling to get the guns up and running because the bolts have frozen in place because it's so fucking cold. They're literally pissing on the machine guns to break the bolts loose. The Marines that were sleeping are scrambling to get out of their sleeping bags and get their guns as a firefight breaks out. The Marines that are just waking up don't even have time to get all their cold weather gear on. Some of these guys are literally running around in a firefight in negative 50-degree weather with no boots, just wearing their socks. The Marines start mowing down the Chinese soldiers as they attempt to attack their position, but the Chinese just keep coming wave after wave after wave. And after the first couple of waves, the waves that are coming out now, some of them don't even have guns on them. They're just running into the battlefield, picking up a gun off a dead Chinese soldier, and then attacking the Marine position. The Marines got everything going for them. They have machine guns, they have the high ground. Granted, it's negative 50 degrees, but that affects everybody, the enemy included. But the Chinese are throwing so many men at the Marines, they can't keep up. Even with the machine guns running full clip, they're still managing to get to the Marine position, and other Marines are fighting off Chinese in hand-to-hand combat with rifles and bayonets, trying to keep them off of the machine gunners. It's literally the nastiest, grittiest warfare you could imagine. It is a
This feels like that like Space Marine 2 video game scene. Tyrannids are coming and there's so many that nothing is working, like you're actually getting overwhelmed. That shit is next level. Imagine that. Imagine like, oh, they didn't even worry about logistics. You don't even have a gun. I don't know, like pick up from a dead person. There you go. Just go. That's some next level shit, man.
knife fight inside of a freezer. The foxholes are shallow because the ground was so frozen, so the Marines literally start taking the dead bodies of Chinese soldiers and stacking them into walls, using them for cover. And it goes all night long. The Marines at Udom-ni, the Army on the other side of the reservoir, and Fox Company all fight their asses off all night. And you gotta remember, Fox Company's only 234 guys holding a position by themselves with no backup for miles, and they are getting attacked by thousands of Chinese soldiers. And if they can't hold the choke point at this road, 8,000 Marines up north at Udom-ni are completely cut off and are absolutely gonna die. Luckily, the man in charge of Fox Company is Captain William Barber, a veteran of Saipan and Tarawa, two of the biggest, nastiest battles of World War II. He radios into HQ as they're getting attacked. We're surrounded, but we can hold them. The 234 Marines of Fox Company quite literally spend their night farming the commies for XP. Captain Barber even gets shot through the leg, refuses to get medevaced, and
Yeah, that's the nicest way of saying what actually happened, which again is like Space Marine 2 thing, Tyrannid Horde, and what you do in the game. And those are humans. This is some next level shit.
Walks around the battlefield on a crutch, commanding his men all night long. Morning breaks, the battle's over. Fox Company has sustained 24 casualties. Bear in mind, casualties is dead and wounded, whether that be from battle or cold weather. On the flip side of the coin, Fox Company literally quits counting the dead bodies outside the perimeter at 1,500. That's not including all of the ones that were wounded by the battle and the weather. Across the entire chosen reservoir, the Marines up at Udom-ni, Fox Company, and the Army, it's suspected that America lost between 600 and 700 soldiers, with hundreds of more wounded from either the battle or cold weather. The conservative estimates of the Chinese casualties are in excess of 12,000. The battle reports get sent down to General Smith. Smith is freaking out. He kicks them up to higher command, and higher command doesn't believe him.
I don't believe you.
So MacArthur sends out his right-hand guy, his
By higher command, you mean MacArthur? The fuck you talking about? You didn't kill no 12,000 or whatever. Like this is fiction. You're Tolkien. That's what this is. You're building Lord of the Rings, and I'm the top military guy.
Nazi, his yes man, General Almond. Mr. Peanut shows up to the fucking army position in his helicopter, hops out, and the army commander informs him, I've got like 400 dead soldiers, a bunch of guys are wounded, we've captured a bunch of Chinese guys last night, and we've recognized patches from at least 2 separate divisions, meaning that there's at least 2 divisions of Chinese soldiers, 26,000 guys surrounding this position right now. To which General Almond, not believing him, says there's not 2 divisions in all of North Korea. Quote, are you gonna let a bunch of Chinese laundrymen get the best of you? End quote. He then gets in his helicopter and fucks off. MacArthur and his staff then issue the order to the 1st Marine Division to continue their advance towards the Yalu River.
Why are you the way that you are?
At this point, General Smith and his men realize that they are now basically
Why is he changing faces like the first Biden, now this? Imagine that level of incompetence from your leaders. Ah, come on, they're not North Korean. Like, maybe China sent them. Would you think about that? Maybe China sent them.
completely on their own, and higher command has lost their fucking minds. General Smith knows that if Fox Company falls, all the Marines at UDamnee are done for, and if he falls at the crossroads at the base of the Chosin Reservoir, the entire division is done for. The real problem is, his HQ at the base of the Chosin Reservoir, right at the crossroads, has 3,600 Marines, but they're not infantry. These aren't combat troops. These are cooks and mechanics and engineers and shit. These are not hardened combat troops.
They're Marines.
But they're about to be, because he orders absolutely everybody to get their guns and get ready for a fight and pick up defensive positions, because the Chinese are coming for them next, and he knows it. And sure enough, the Chinese start launching attacks during the day on November 28th.
Imagine going there and like kitchen knife, somebody just take that away and put the combat knife in there. Yeah, there you go. And everybody's like, okay.
They launch attacks everywhere they had attacked the night before, and they're now attacking the division HQ at Hagaru, where General Smith is. The Chinese penetrated so far south that they actually came up behind Hagaru, and Hagaru is now completely surrounded as well. General Smith knows that Mao
That's
wants
over.
to divide and conquer, and he can't let him do it.
99% of the cases, that is probably over. If you see how Germany was working in World War II in the eastern flank, you just see this like encirclement, and then you suddenly see pop up like, 80,000 prisoner of war. Again happens 50,000 prisoner of war. 100,000 prisoner of war. Numbers were insane back then in World War II. And Germany was doing that constantly in the eastern flank towards Soviet Union. This is basically that. Like, so this is basically like, oh, by the way, it's done. Of course, these are like Marines and Americans. It's not done.
So he sends the order out to his men in the field, hold your position as long as you can, and then make your way back to Hagaru so we can consolidate forces. And that's exactly what they do. They fight all day and all night on the 28th, the 29th, the 30th. And then when they can't take any more, they finally start to make their way back to Hagaru. And this isn't just hop in the trucks and drive 10 miles down the road. They're completely surrounded. If they are moving, they are fighting every single inch of the way while trying to get hundreds of wounded men out the entire time. The army fights their way down to Hudong, where they reconvene with their tanks and continue fighting their way down to Hagaru. The Marines have to fight their way down to where Fox Company is, reconvene with them, and continue fighting their way down to Hagaru. And while that's going on November 29th, Hagaru is completely surrounded, the road is cut off, they have no way of escaping, so they call up what remains of the 1st Marines down south, and they have a colonel in charge of them, Chesty Puller, who drives north and takes over the nearest town 11 miles from Hagaru called Kodori. The Chinese try to stop Chesty Puller and the 1st Marines, but they can't stop him. Once he's taken the town, they launch multiple attacks trying to retake it, but they can't. From here, they immediately put together Task Force Drysdale, 900 infantry troops that are going to convoy 11 miles up to Hagaru to reinforce them. Task Force Drysdale has to fight through the entire way. 1/3 of the men in that convoy end up getting killed or wounded. Another third are forced to turn back because there's so many damaged trucks blocking the road, and only 1/3 makes it into Hagaru. But now Hagaru has 300 infantry soldiers helping all the cooks and mechanics. As the Marines from UDamnee and the Army unit continue to fight their way south, the only thing keeping Hagaru in this fight is the airfield, bringing in C-47s full of supplies and carrying out thousands of wounded. You know, that same airfield that General Smith got a bunch of shit for building because it was unnecessary and he was being overly cautious. Yeah, well, now it's the only lifeline they have.
I fucking knew it!
The Army fights their way down, they make it in.
Hey, MacArthur, sucker. I would do that. I don't care if he's my superior. Like, what'd you just say to me? Oh, I'm a weak guy for doing this. Laughing your ass off, huh? How about now?
To Hagaru on December 1st. That same exact day, they've got C-47s coming in, dropping supplies, carrying out wounded, and somewhere along the lines, obviously they're running low on ammo, they're running low on medical supplies, they're running low on food. It's a complete disaster, and one of the things they needed were 60mm mortar rounds, commonly referred to as Tootsie Rolls. Well, apparently the guy loading the C-47 didn't know that, so an entire C-47 full of literal Tootsie Rolls, like the candy, shows up. Literally.
That did not just fucking happen. You did not just name something and the guy actually misunderstood that and gave actual Tootsie Rolls instead of the mortars. What the fuck? This is the most American thing there is, naming things, right? Giving name and titles to it. just jokingly way. Somebody actually didn't understand that shit. Oh.
Just cases and cases and pallets of fucking Tootsie Rolls, and the Marines are like, I guess we're eating candy and kicking ass? Why not? Bear in mind, they're still getting
Oh shit, here comes the mortar and a Tootsie Roll. Should I throw at them? What am I supposed to do with this?
attacked all day and all night, just repelling wave after wave, meat wall after meat wall of commies, and pretty soon it's just dead commies and Tootsie Roll wrappers all over the fucking place. And then the Marines start to realize when it's sub-zero temperatures, Tootsie Rolls are more than just a delicious treat. If you stick it in your mouth and chew it up a little bit and take it out, it makes basically rubber cement, and they start using it to patch fuel lines and patch holes and fix all kinds of shit in Hagaru. And the Marines and the Army just keep fighting all day, all night. They're doing everything they can for their wounds.
Literally, with a little elbow grease, it's time to get to work. Give me that Tootsie Roll. I'm gonna fix things.
The cold absolutely sucks. It's freezing the morphine. People are in pain. But on the flip side, the cold is also freezing shut wounds that would normally cause a lot of men to bleed to death. So the cold actually ended up saving a lot of lives as well. Everybody's got frost.
See, that's the thing with cold and hot. Look, if you're working out, let's talk about everyday thing and not extreme environments where people fought and died. 99% people can't relate to that. So let's talk about workouts, right? If you work out in winter, there is a benefit to it. You're not gonna have DOMs. You're not gonna have soreness. But at the same time, you're not gonna have proper blood flow to grow and repair. In hot environment, you are gonna have proper blood flow and repair. You'll recover much earlier because blood flow is higher. But at the same time, as soon as you work out, you're gonna be very sore because DOMS is kicking in. And you're swollen everywhere. Like, you need to take anti-inflammatories and like fish oil and this and that. So this is like cold and hot both have their uses. So in cold environment, yeah, you can get damaged really earlier, but you're not gonna swell or like have internal bleedings or have like edemas and things like that where you need an anti-inflammatory and shit like that. It's just gonna, because you're in minus 40. But you're also not gonna recover because you need blood flow after that.
Bite to varying degrees, but everybody just keeps fighting their ass off day and night. And by December 2nd, the rest of the Marines from Udamni make their way into Hagaru. And while all this is going on, somewhere along the line, it finally dawns on higher command that they have severely fucked up. MacArthur is just a defeated man. The newspapers back home have completely written off the entire 1st Marine Division with newspaper headlines basically saying they're doomed, they're a lost division, they're all gonna die. Pray for your loved ones. And as the Marines from Udamni are coming in, even though they haven't read those headlines and they haven't heard that, they feel that way. Their heads are hanging low, they're beat up, they're frostbitten, they've got wounded, and it just fucking sucks. And as they come marching in, all the other Marines in Hagaru and the Army start chanting the Marine Corps hymn. And as the Marines hear that, they lift their heads a little bit higher and they go from staggering into Hagaru to marching into Hagaru. And this is it. This is a Hollywood moment. This is Eye of the Tiger playing in a Rocky movie where everybody decides this fight isn't fucking over yet. Obviously, the Marines that have been at Hagaru are in a little bit better shape than the guys that were up at Udamni and the Army unit. They're bringing everybody in, they're getting them fed, they're trying to get everybody warm. You got C-47s flying in supplies, carrying out wounded, bringing in ammunition, food, rations, absolutely everything. The Marines are literally using flamethrowers to heat up the food because it's frozen solid. The Chinese are still trying to attack, but America's got air superiority, artillery, supplies. They've got everything going for them except for numbers. The question now becomes, how are we going to get everybody out of here? We could fly everybody out with C-47s, but then we're going to have to abandon all the trucks, all the artillery, all the equipment. And then you're going to have the bigger issue of once the Chinese figure out that we're flying out all of our guys, the guys that they leave out at the ass end, if they get attacked, they're all going to die. So that's not really an option. The only option is to fight 11 miles south back to Kodo-ri with Chesty and the rest of the 1st Marine Division. And then from there, they're going to have to link up and fight further south from Kodo-ri down to the port of Hungnam, where they're going to be able to get on a ship and get out of there. So they spend the next 4 days getting ready for this massive movement, trying to fly out the most wounded on the airplanes, but they're not going to be able to get all the wounded out in time. They're going to have to put them in trucks and take them with them. Now, this type of movement is what many historians and battlefield experts would refer to as a fighting retreat. Basically, you're going to have to fight while you're defending your wounded and extract the other way. The problem is, and what General Smith would later argue, this is not a fighting retreat because I'm completely surrounded. I'm not falling back to friendly enemy lines. I'm literally literally assaulting another direction, and that's exactly what he tells his men, and it sets the vibe for the entire operation. We're not falling back, we're going back in and through the enemy.
Let's fucking go. Get your spectral sock out, nerds. It's gonna get good.
And that's exactly what they do. The Marines punch through and fight 11 miles straight to Kodo-ri, where they link back up with Chesty and the rest of the 1st Marine Division. While in Kodo-ri, they're still obviously having supplies and everything airdropped in, and whether it was purely a mistake or whether somebody in the Air Force has a really good sense of humor, some of the supplies that they airdropped in were crates and crates of condoms.
I'm sorry, what?
Which, whether it was intentional or not, provided a much-needed comic relief because, let's face it, the Marines are only good at 3 things: getting stuff dead, broken, or pregnant, and pretty much all the enemies dying off, everything's already broken, being patched together with fucking Tootsie Rolls. There's only one thing left they could do.
And that's it.
All jokes aside, there's still work to be done, and somebody's got to get the Marines back on task, and this is where Chesty comes up with one of the most famous quotes in Marine Corps history. Quote, "We're surrounded. That simplifies the problem. They're to the left of us, they're to the right of us, they're in front of us, they're behind us. They can't get away this time." And with that, around 4.
Sir, what is the strategy? Yeah, that's the strategy you get. Pick your place. Go where. There's your gun.
14,000 Marines and 1,000 vehicles set off on this 35-mile journey. Now, remember, this is a narrow road, only 1 car wide. This convoy stretches for miles. As the lead element approaches Fuchilin Pass, there is a bridge. It is the only way to get across this massive gorge. And when they get there,
Imagine the guy who's going from North Korea to China using this road. He's like, what's happening? And just see the convoy and bomb fire is happening. I guess I didn't read the news.
the bridge is blown up right in the middle with a 29-foot gap in it. The Chinese have them trapped. There is no other way out. This is it. This is game over for anybody except for America. Because America has the greatest logistical capability that the world has ever seen. So when the Marines get on the radio and say, "We need a bridge," the Air Force simply replies, "Copy." The Marines then leave the trucks on the road, fight up the ridge, take the high ground, and start engaging the enemy for hours, giving the Air Force time. While that's going on, the Air Force acquires 8 portable bridge sections weighing 3,000 pounds apiece that have never been dropped out of a plane before, do practice runs figuring out how to drop these things out of a plane without breaking them and without getting people killed, figures it out, and airdrops the bridge pieces back at Kodo-ri, where the Marines load them onto trucks and bulldozers and get them in the convoy headed to the bridge. And this gets done in the span of less than 24 hours. Once the bridge pieces make it there, with the Marines still engaging the enemy and the workers under fire, they then install the bridge sections and have it go from "there's no bridge here, we're fucked" to "hey guys, we've got a bridge" in less than 36 hours. Oh, and I forgot to mention, this was during the worst weather of the entire affair, with temperatures dipping down to negative 55 degrees during a blizzard where visibility was less than 50 feet in front of your face. And that's it. Once they cross this bridge, they're home free. There's a couple of more skirmishes between here.
These are some, like, not just logistical nightmares, these are mechanical nightmares. How do they know, like, some of these vehicles will actually work in this environment? 55 minus is not a joke. That's insanity. At that level of, like, you need to know, like, if this thing's gonna work in this temperature or not.
Here in Hungnam, but they just wipe them to the side. You got to remember, the Chinese have been out there just as long as them, and they're not getting all this resupply and everything else. These guys are hurting. They're rolling up on setup ambushes and checkpoints, and the Chinese soldiers are literally just frozen solid in place. And as they're making this multi-day voyage to Hungnam, this last 35 miles, the weather breaks, and it goes from being negative 55 degrees to like 30 degrees, an 80-degree temperature shift, and to these guys, it's fucking hot out. So when the 14,000 Marines roll into Hungnam, the same Marines in newspapers have been saying,
Isn't that shock-worthy, that level of temperature change? Damn, all right.
they're as good as dead, they're doomed, they're a lost cause for weeks. Roll in, they do it sitting on top of tanks and in trucks like half-dressed. So they link up with the UN forces in Hungnam. There's now 100,000 men there, but there's still hundreds of thousands of Chinese that are coming down as reinforcements to crush them. They got to get out of there as soon as possible. They've got 100 ships to load everybody up on, but then things get complicated because 100,000 Korean civilians start showing up from all the towns and villages nearby because the Chinese were looting them and killing them, or they just don't want to live under the threat of communism their entire lives. And they just start walking to Hungnam and beg them to help. We've only got 100 ships to get 100,000 of our own guys out of there. I don't think many people would judge them if they said, I'm sorry, we can't help you. We're trying to do everything we can, but we got to save ourselves first. But that's not what they did. U.S. forces have lost a ton of men. They've got thousands of wounded. They've got over 10,000 men suffering from frostbite, and they say, fuck it, we can still impromptu successfully pull off one of the largest humanitarian evacuations in the history of the world. Why not? They rigged the entire city to blow up, including the port, and then loaded absolutely everybody, the UN troops and 100,000 civilians on board of these ships, and it is just ass-packed like sardines. To give you an idea of how packed it was, the USS Meredith, a merchant marine vessel that only had 68 crew members, managed to cram over 14,000 Korean civilians on board. And on an extremely dangerous 7-day voyage to safety, not a single
But yeah, that's the thing. Like, okay, you crammed it. Great. For how many times? Is it a 4-hour journey? 2-hour journey? Are you going in a car? No, this is a boat. It will take days. Crammed up that much for that long? How the fuck that even works, man?
one of them would die. In fact, 5 people were born, giving it the nickname the Ship of Miracles. So they got absolutely everybody evacuated onto ships, got underway on this extremely dangerous 7-day voyage, and then blew up the entire city. Over 1 million people in South Korea today are descendants of those civilians that the UN troops saved. At the Battle of the Chosin Reservoir, 1,079 American troops died in combat. Another 4,582 were wounded, with thousands more suffering from frostbite. Conservative estimates from the UN believe that the Chinese military suffered somewhere around 43,000 casualties, with other credible estimates ranging as high as in excess of 60,000.
Mao killed so many of his own people in just numbers. Like, this doesn't even compare, is it? Like, even 43,000, when you think about it, number is like, but it's 43,000 number. That's the thing. When you think about like certain casualties, you feel like that's a big number. Then you see about the biggest casualty that ever was. And like, what is a speck of dust? The variation is insane, man. 43,000. When you really process like that, that's at the time like holy shit. Those are some number. Like imagine an arena filled with 43,000.
The Chosin Reservoir would go on to become one of the most decorated battles in American history, with the men earning 17 Medals of Honor, including Captain Barber of Fox Company, 73 Navy Crosses, one of which went to Chesty Puller, and 23
What did MacArthur got though?
Distinguished Service Crosses. Many of the Marines that survived the Chosin Reservoir would later in life go on to express great pride in the fact that they not only managed to save themselves, but they managed to save South Korea as well. And allegedly, many of them requested to be buried with Tootsie Rolls. Thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch over at thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang out.
Those guys, they were so tough in what they had been through. You know, you see things like that and you go, what are the limits of a man's endurance and his courage and his spirit?
We felt that we were going to kick some butt, and we were kicking butt up there. Until you got to Hellfire Valley, I should put that in there. I would say when I got to Hellfire Valley on the way out, walking out, you could almost cry seeing those Marines laying there. Until you see your guy laying there, you don't think much of it.
As we got near the lines, we were aware that we were getting into Hagaroo. Somebody said, count, cadence, count. And people started getting in step. You could hear the shoe packs, first clumpity, clump, clump, clumpity, and then they were clump, clump, clump. People were getting in step, we were marching.
We marched into Hagaroo. The sound of feet crunching in the frozen ice. Someone watching us said, look at those bastards, those magnificent bastards.
You're not the same person. You're a different person. You're just something you never thought you'd be.
I'm happy that I was able to participate in something that was as important as the Korean War.
We had an obligation to fulfill, and we did it. Freedom has a price. It's not free.
You have to fight for this freedom. And when I look and see what the South Korean people are enjoying today, I guess I'm glad I was part of that.
Time proves that we were absolutely right in doing what we did to help save them.
You're proud that you did it. You don't realize how proud you are until you get older. I don't know why, but I can relate and say I was a chosen survivor. You know, it's... Not everybody can say that. I was there. You're proud of the moment. And you're glad you survived. And God bless America, that's all I can say.
I've seen around the world have the cleanest bodies, the filthiest minds, the highest morale, and the lowest morale of any group of animals I ever see. Okay. Hang on. Yeah. Yep, there you go. Yeah, this is heavy, man. To me, this battle feels like one of the insane show of human resilience and what humans can do, because it is minus 40, minus 55 even, in one of the most bad environment there can be, surrounded by all side automatic prisoner of war, any other war, surrounded, even bridge being blown up. Like, they faced everything, and after all the ridiculous shit that feels like Hollywood level thing at that temperature, going back and actually rescuing a lot of Korean people with them, like, you can't really see many stories like that. This is literally like, what if I put a human through one of the worst conditions and worst scenarios I can think of? Would that human rise to the occasion? This is fine example of what a human survival is, because they wanted to do something. They had like honorable goal, and they didn't like fall down. They didn't like, okay, that's it, I can't do this shit. Like, even after all this, they did all that. Like, I can't even imagine minus 40 degrees Celsius, and they are just fighting in it. And fighting started at night. That's insane. Man, this story was awesome. Right, well, if you like my next video, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.